After literally 3 phenomenal releases back to back, we have seemingly turned our backs on Jordan Peele. Or rather, the industry has. Due to the ever-continuing controversy surrounding the new sports film, Him,
do I look at you or the camera?
You'll just look right at me. You'll just ignore the camera.
starring Marlon Wayans,
I was instantly interested because I'm a fan of A of Horror, B of Sports. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peele and the Monkey Paw brand.
the untitled 4th Peele-directed installment, set to release initially Christmas 2024, then Halloween 2026, has silently been removed from Universal Studios' release calendar for next year. Which makes even less sense as Peele wasn't even the director for Him, being merely a supportive producer. In what ways does this have significance with his own self-directed catalog? Not only a crushing blow for Jordan Peele fans, but horror fanatics alike, showing you just how credible public perception in today's movie industry is. Even for the likes of mega successful directors like Peele, for instance. Directors aren't being given room to make any mistakes anymore, creatively or in their personal lives, as financially speaking, the stakes are just too high to let any old controversy impact the pockets of investors.
Do you want this? I said, do you want this?
Regardless of how impactful your films are, the Oscar and 3 nominations along with it, directors and actors alike are constantly walking on thin ice whether they like to believe it or not. Jordan Peele's evidently not alone. When's the last time you brought up a movie and the first thing out of your mouth was the director?
What's going on here?
How's it going, man? How are you?
What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? Put that down. What's going on here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Do you not talk to me?
Just for the. What are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that again.
No, our sample filmmaker doesn't count. Okay, let's dive deeper. Out of these instances, how many are actually contemporary directors of our time? More likely than not, you thought of powerhouse giants of the last 3 or 4 decades, from Martin Scorsese,
some reason stays with you. A few years later, you could watch it again. Or 10 years later, you watch it again and it's different.
Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino,
It's none of your damn business what I think about that.
Stanley Kubrick,
Right.
James Cameron,
Just following my own interests again.
or even Christopher
I'm Christopher
Nolan,
Nolan, and welcome to the final screening at the IMAX Theatre Sydney before its grand reopening.
each mastering their directive craft at a time when directors were still given enough room to create substantial bodies of work, without the prying eyes of heads of industry.
Ready?
But it's not like there haven't been any newly discovered directors during the 2010s and first half of the 2020s. But rather, the cultural relevancy or star power that directors were once able to draw.
Now, watch.
IPs and franchising in no ways help the matter, as directors don't really even get funding for indies and other alternative genres anymore, since a bulk of audiences are yearning for their favorite comic book heroes to appear on screen. You think I'm kidding? At its peak, superhero movies encompass more than 30% of the total box office sales worldwide. And even though industry trends have stabilized back to how it was in the late 2000s with viewers, investors still haven't really gotten the memo.
He's not alright.
When so much of your viewership want blockbusters and known franchises from pop culture, how can we expect the other genres to be getting the same sizes of budgets to work with?
Should we bow?
To top it off, even if you're handed an age-old IP and want to create an authentic piece of art through your story, producers are still being dealt meager chunks of funding to screenwriters, script supervisors, and many of the other behind-the-scenes aspects that go into saving costs for production. So, even with a completely expanded, fully encompassing story, how are you to exemplify that plot when your dialogue and writing are shit? And this clearly shows in pop culture as well. Once when everyone knew the biggest directors and all of their catalog off the tip of their tongue.
There's more to learn about yourself or about life.
Now, outside of Jordan Peele and M. Night Shyamalan, both considered more contemporary when it comes to Hollywood filmmakers, all of our favorite directors had their career launches in the 80s or 90s. Today, most top releases of any given year are jammed with films relying on either their IP or a big-name star on the cover, many a times embracing a combination of both. Audiences are therefore less inclined to remember the names of directors in exchange for dopamine-driven viewings. We know of Jordan Peele and Shyamalan well, since their works have each brought about breakthroughs in cinematic artistry and stood as visionary works of their time. But how many people really know S.J. Clarkson directed Madame Web? I'm gonna need full transparency here.
New York City's a whole new level of crazy these days.
The comedian turned blockbuster horror movie director Jordan Peele has been hard at work on his fourth highly anticipated film for a while
And
now.
I just desperately wanted to make my offering to that pantheon of evil double films.
With it originally being scheduled to open theater doors over the 2024 Christmas weekend, this initial date unfortunately had not worked out due to the multitude of Writers Guild strikes during that time. And the film was pushed back to October 2026 with a new Halloween release date. Though that has all seemingly changed,
They
and
know where we are. They won't stop until
at the
they-
time of writing this video, the film has been stripped of that spot with no replacement in sight. Even though there wasn't much out there publicly regarding what this new movie is going to be about, but in Peele fashion, many outlets had described it as a horror thriller with Jordan written all over it. Since his directorial debut in 2017 with Get Out, he has become a household name synonymous with the greats among directors. Being ever novel is his loyalty to his genre, as there haven't been many horror movies who have played with artistry and storytelling the same way he has. Alright, we'll add a little bit more glaze.
Jordan Peele, Get Out. This is the first Oscar for three-time nominee Jordan Peele. He is also nominated tonight as director and producer of Get Out.
Get Out becoming the highest grossing debut for a writer-director based on original screenplay doesn't fare well, I guess, on the off chance there may be controversy with a misunderstood multi-layered horror film. Him, for many critics and fans alike, even though praise Wayans for his charismatic method acting in the movie,
I just feel like he does really quality stuff, whether he's whether Monkey Paw is producing or Jordan's actually directing.
pointed to its muddled storyline and excessive, oftentimes confusing content covered, which overshadowed its attempt to critique professional sports culture. The film was widely criticized for its poor execution despite a promising premise. But even so, much of the online criticism seemed unnecessarily harsh. One writer went as far as even saying, "There's an inflection point in the year for every critic when a cold realization dawns during a screening. This could be the worst film I've seen in 2025? And it's only getting more intolerable?" Him, the football horror thriller, bashes the senses with gruesome imagery, mind-numbing strobe effects, and shaky cinematography in an ugly narrative. Okay, unless we're somehow basing each producer's films against their own catalog, Him is a long way from worst movie of the year, since The Electric State came out 2025 too, and we're not even gonna talk about that. Yes, Him in some ways was not successful in its attempt of satire, as many viewers felt the movie failed at delivering a coherent critique of professional football and sports fandom.
You know, I grew up watching Marlon and obsessed with his comedy.
In combination with its explicit and extreme content, including a blend of religious and occult imagery, graphic violence, and themes of sacrificial ceremonies, which some viewers evidently found offensive. Fair, but have you ever heard of symbolism, allegories, or even a metonymy? Which is a cinematic technique involving the use of a closely related object to represent something else. It's not rocket science. At times during the film, the overall plot and message was lost amid a jarring mix of horror tropes, social commentary, and psychedelic imagery one after another.
You know, Cam puts his trust in who he is. You know, it's like meeting any hero of yours. You're like, oh, he's won 8 rings, he's Isaiah White.
Though, this still doesn't equate to the degree of hate it's receiving. It's as if the alluring concept itself hurt the execution of the film. Like it somehow would have been better off if the premise of the movie was rubbish too. Each of these dreadful reviews ushering Him as the worst movie of the year clearly wasn't paying attention to the countless releases with poor execution along with an already meaningless plot. At least Him had us on the edge of our seats, each fascinated by the premise of the movie itself. And it's not like they didn't take any risks. Just because an artistic vision or concept didn't come off as enticing to you,
It's like a double-edged sword. I think Isaiah needs Cam.
doesn't mean it was lazy or ineffective. To many traditional critics and viewers, the visual bombardment and use of strobe effects, rapid cuts, and surreal optics may have been uncomfortable, but that was the point. The perspective in which him takes is supposed to be unsettling and absurd. And even if critics complained that the film introduced too many horror and occult elements without them effectively serving the overall story, I argue him isn't even a full horror film. Yes, it clearly adopts many horror aspects like demonic figures and sacrificial rituals, though the main themes are more so centered around societal concepts, making it more a social surrealism film on the horrors of sports stardom.
I've been famous since I was 19. I don't know what it's gonna be like when I'm like 75 and I'm not famous no more.
But that just shows you the thin line major directors walk on nowadays.
You people, we're Americans.
Where you might even be hesitant on producing whatever comes across your desk, as any affiliation to anything contentious could and has hurt the trajectory of some of our most notable directors. So if it can happen to the likes of Jordan Peele, in a genre of film where criticism stood manageable for so long, the act of being put onto limbo can really happen to any filmmaker.
The idea that what we feel like we deserve.
I stopped writing this movie about 20 times because I thought it was impossible. I thought it wasn't going to work. I thought no one would ever make this movie, but I kept coming back to it because I knew if someone let me make this movie, that people would hear it and people would see it.
Once when genre categorization for films felt more realistic and irrelevant at the same time, as most fans were more hyped up over the stars of films than their technical labeling. Directors were naturally given more and more of a spotlight when their well thought out projects were able to hoist leads to their own peaks of stardom.
The character of the Joker was just too good to turn down.
Selectivity then organically grew from this stature, and the directors of the 80s and 90s now are seen as gods among filmmakers. To where at some point down the line, our big three, Scorsese, Spielberg, and Tarantino,
You're very influential. Quentin Tarantino, thank you very much.
didn't even hold auditions when going through pre-productions for most of their films. Already having the exact star in mind, it was generally a matter of how the contracts can uphold both parties' favors. Many actors could go their entire careers without getting the opportunity for a Scorsese or Tarantino film. And so networking and getting your name in front of the right people became the surefire way for Hollywood stardom. Our biggest actors today all had to compete through this cinematic landscape to get on the good side of directing.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
However, with the ever-changing landscape incorporating analytics into every known crevice of the industry, that leverage has shifted to stakeholders. Blockbuster franchising now fills a greater majority of all the theaters across the globe, and not just comic book superhero adaptations, since we know that's only a third of box office sales even at its peak. This incorporates not only many of our favorite action and adventure films, like the Fast and Furious franchise.
This is Brazil.
Mission Impossible, as well as James Cameron's Avatar, but children films like Despicable Me and Shrek.
Hey, Magic Mirror, who's the fairest of them all?
Who each are at their at least 6th film of their series, though each of these do stand as bodies of works creatively playing on the characters we know and love, but never departing too much from the general plot structure of that universe. Nostalgia-driven releases may continue to draw in ticket sales as fans aren't yet reluctant to sitting and enjoying their favorite characters in theaters, however, never garnering the same level of cultural attention that a novel story or screenplay can receive. How are newer directors supposed to make a name for themselves when any attempt at creating new and intriguing shots or post-production are drowned out by the critical eye of audiences? Since, after all, it's just another franchise release, right? The trap that current movie producers are falling into, with the ever-progressive algorithmic software, whom logistically should prefer the safe bet of a remake or reimagining since there's already data there to prove its legitimacy. But the thing with movies and art is that unpredictability equals creativity. No matter the medium, seeing something that has never been done before will always be intriguing to audiences. A derivative work is different from a franchising add-on to a series, as paying homage both requires you to be a third-party artist while also expanding on that topic to create something new. But most of the franchising that goes on today in Hollywood revolve around the reshuffling of techniques and cinematic devices proven to be successful in previous renditions. That's why a majority of the changes that are made between Fast and Furious 6 and 7
Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, there he is. These your dancers? This is a party, baby.
and Mission Impossible films end up being the cover poster, overall setting, our stars maneuver across, as well as the secondary leads and cameos. The overall structure of plot generally stays the same, as regardless of the contractual obligations put in place by our better known icons, they more or less come out as cookie cutter adaptations of the first successful premiering. The Fast and Furious franchise gained significant financial momentum with Fast 5 in 2011, shifting away from their focus on street racing and the Tokyo Drift scene to a more high-stakes heist format, incorporating an ensemble of characters we've grown to know and love from the past 4 movies, along with the incorporation of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as a formidable antagonist featuring bigger, more over-the-top action sequences. This transformed the series into a multi-billion-dollar global action franchise we know it to be today. This winning formula of the series was repeated a few more times after, following Furious 7 in 2015 to become the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed release of the series, earning over $1.5 billion globally and setting a high watermark for future financial success. Even though the fate of the Furious brought somewhat of a fresh spin, the newest installment, Fast X, in 2023 was the lowest grossing release in over a decade. Despite being its most expensive film to produce, fans aren't reluctant to drag themselves out of their comfy homes to theaters if they know how the movie overall is gonna go. They could just wait for it to hit streaming. Similar to Shrek 5, delayed by Universal and DreamWorks Studios for 6 months a couple of weeks ago, supposedly as a strategic decision to avoid competition with other animators. But if you're on TikTok, you know the 10-second teaser meant to stir up momentum before its release was quickly deflated by many fans whom, without hesitation, predicted the plot of the entire movie with just images of the main characters.
Yeah, we already see where this is going. This is going to be another one of those cliche father and daughter coming of age movies. We already know. So you don't have to waste your time seeing this movie.
And it's not like the average TikTok user has had any professional training in screenplay writing. These new releases are just that predictable. Whether because we're so accustomed to the franchises and characters that we could damn near write our own fanfic better than producers can, or that sticking to a relentless formula for cinematic works just ain't cutting it. Regardless of how attractive implementing social media aspects to the cinematic industry may be, you just can't make a movie the same way YouTube videos are sometimes churned out. But even so, whether due to streaming's diminishing of value to films or the over-influx of producers and movies alike, fans are still flooding in for major blockbuster IPs.
You can't do it, can you? Not until you get your plutonium.
So even if you're a budding director who has a few footholds into crucial Hollywood circles, if you get a chance to direct a Jurassic World or Batman movie, you're probably smashing at the box office regardless. When artistry and vision matter less than the name of the character or world they're part of, directors and other behind-the-scenes roles get less of a spotlight. To where there are many times 2 to 3 co-directors in charge of other aspects of production for many top blockbusters. Not only have actors slowly been pushed for more one-sided deals, favoring studios as are our directors, and why you still can't name many new age filmmakers like you once could with Nolan,
I try to be all about story.
Kubrick, and Cameron. But I can bet you money you can still ramble off a list full of IPs and exactly when the last reimagining came out.
And I try to take my director's hat off when I'm writing and write things that I then come to as a director and I say I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea what this will look like, how to visualize it.
Many still remember of a time when directors stood at the center of a production as a head chef would in their kitchen. in charge of literally every aspect of what goes on, and with an ever firm hand on the reins, controls with diction and sometimes irrationality. Though that's what most of us have grown to understand, that in the movie industry, you just don't mess with the director. Though recently these leverage-based transactions have more or less changed, or evolved to mirror the likes of actors now as well. Since even with lower budget indie films, stars still have to kiss up to directors to get what they wanted out of the role. As at the time, what the director said essentially goes. If they thought you weren't the right pick for the role, out of there. But now we see examples of directors like Bryan Singer, Phil Lord, and Christopher Miller whom have been let go of their duties for sometimes merely creative differences. A decade or two ago, actors had to hold their tongues when their beliefs clashed with that of directors. And if a novel vision was imagined by filmmakers, many a times they would take a shot at it. But now, maybe since so many movies have already spent literally millions of dollars just to use a couple of characters' rights and stories, there's no room for experimentation many of times. For Solo, the 2018 Star Wars story...
What? Who are your people? I don't have people. I'm one.
Solo. Approved. Proceed to transport ID 83 for the Naval Academy at Kurita.
Lord and Miller reportedly favored an improvisational and comedic approach, similar to, I'm assuming, the likes of Thor Ragnarok and Love and Thunder.
Listen, ding-donging or bum-rushing, especially not Zeus's bum. When the time is right, I'm going to talk to him.
Time's right now.
Time is not right now.
Who is talking?
However, this clashed with Lucasfilm's more structured vision of the franchise, and Ron Howard was brought in to complete the film. Or even Bryan Singer for 2018's Bohemian Rhapsody. Once when actors, set, and anyone for production would wince at the thought of arguing with the director, it was unheard of for them to be let go for misunderstandings with the cast. Depending on how significant the star power of leads are, that's now feasible. Singer was fired from the Queen biopic literally towards the end of production, with, I believe, only about 2.5 weeks left to be exact. Due to the pattern of on-set clashes with star Rami Malek, Dexter Fletcher was then hired to finish the last couple of weeks of filming along with post-production. In today's cinematic landscape, directors have become as dispensable as are actors or cameo stars, with dependence being transferred over to the intellectual property themselves rather than the creators of the rendition. Unless you have dozens and dozens of hits in your catalog, you aren't safe. And even if so, you're still 1 or 2 shaky releases away from facing the chopping board. At a time when our sports stars are getting ever more leverage against their branded teams whom hold the keys to their contracts, it's as if each time a new intellectual property is set into motion from the executive studios, they're tasked with building a roster capable of reaching the box office standards they're expecting.
Sound good? Hope he doesn't.
And this drafting not only includes role actors, but also the directors and other far more respected roles of production. And even if the filmmaker you were hoping for drafting had an injury or controversy, you can just pluck the next one from that genre and still be fine. Cause either way, you're getting to the Oscars no matter what, since they grew up with the IP and Tom Holland is starring in it with a cameo from Zendaya. You bet your sweet behind that everyone and their moms are copping a ticket.
Great.
That a novel story or screenplay is crazy. IPs... You sound fucking British. IPs and franchising in no ways help the matter, as directors don't... You're never high-class British either. It's fuck Dublin. This is Athens. Don't owe nobody, always on the end job. I only got hobbies, got the city in with me cause I'm home. Girl vibing out more than my phone. Don't leave me alone, me on my own though. I cut that bitch off like an edit. My daddy is GH next. I heard your new shit is pathetic. Your contract should be shredded. So my dog's on a private jet from the public house and I kept a G. Yeah, 1,000 click stars started like a Paramount Mountain. Everything I do is right, shit. Betting on me is a right risk. Even in crisis, I'm never on subscription side, shit. I switch gears to the night, shit. Blacking out cause I'm enlightened. God talk to me in silence, but I'm here every time, man. Amen.